I'm surprised like they allowed Robert Eggers to keep the movie as like different as it is, because
Drive-by movies you're watching.
fresh releases.
My name is Blaise.
And my name is James.
And this week we're talking The Northman, Robert Eggers' new Viking romp.
And night by night, we will carry out my pledge of vengeance. I will avenge you, Father.
I will avenge you, Father.
I will save you, Mother.
I will save you, Mother.
I will kill you, Philip.
The Northman is the Viking romp we've all been waiting for our entire lives. It's an action-filled epic that follows a young Viking prince on his quest to avenge his father's murder and to free his mother and to something. I forgot the chant that he says at the beginning of the movie as a little kid. I will avenge you, father. I will free you, mother.
I think it's free you, mother. Yeah.
Yeah, and one other thing too, but yeah. The Northman, yeah, so it's been out in theaters for quite some time. It's still playing in a couple select theaters, but it's on demand, and that's how we check out movies. We are still afraid of COVID. We don't go to the theaters. No, we still do every once in a while.
I feel personally attacked.
No, I mean, I try to avoid it. I still try to go to the MTS theaters whenever possible and everything. But this is not a movie I highly recommend checking out in big crowded theaters, because that's what I did. I saw it in a theater where a guy just fucking vaped the theater full of people. I'm pretty sure it was sold out, and right when I got there, his backpack was on my seat, and I'm like, your backpack's on my seat, dude.
Oh,
and his response was like, oh, I guess your seat comes with the backpack then. I was like, oh god, you're in the wrong theater, my dude. That was my experience seeing this movie when it first came out. Blaise, we just checked it out through on demand recently. Blaise, what are your initial thoughts after checking it out?
So my initial thoughts are, I feel like this is one of those films that does not play as well not on a giant movie theater screen. I watched it on demand, you watched it in theaters, so it'd be good to get a difference of, you know, the kind of viewing experience. I definitely feel like this is one of those movies that doesn't play well at home. Kind of a little bit, you know, digging into what I said last week about Emergency was, I think this is a film that also is, you know, kind of in the darker realm, where this film isn't as bad as like Emergency, where literally every scene's at night. This is one where, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of at night, or is definitely cast with like kind of a darker hue, being that it's in, you know, Iceland. But this is, yeah, just is one that I feel like doesn't play as well at home. For some reason, it felt longer than it should be at home. I still think the film is like very much enjoyable. It's very original. It's something that I haven't seen for a long time, and that's honestly a disgrace to not see something like this, you know, every couple of years. I think the most obvious film I can go back to reaching that came out a couple of years back was, and this is probably more than a couple of years back, but anyways, The Revenant, which also, you know, has this very similar color palette to this, but they're both very much, you know, revenge films, and I think they're both executed well. But one of the things to take away from Robert Eggers' The Northman is just the idea that, like, even when approaching The Witch, like, he always tries to approach films as like so historically accurate, and that was one of his missions when making this film, was to make sure that it was like beyond historically accurate. It would be the most historically accurate Viking film ever produced, and I think he, you know, succeeded in that, obviously, because he had so many historians working alongside him to make sure everything, down to just some of the boats, like the placement of people and how close they were to each other, being historically accurate. Does that make that a better movie? I don't know. That's up to the interpretation, but I don't think it detracted from the film by any means.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to like get into it, like, I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. Movies that I like a lot, like from the past, like movies like Gladiator. You know, they weren't speaking English during those battles and everything, but you know, it's kind of something that like you just got to turn and look the other way. And like with this, like I appreciate those efforts. I don't know how historically accurate it was because I don't know anything about Viking history from the 100s the 100s time. I forgot what year it took place, but I know it's for sure before 1000 at least. And so you know that I do appreciate that effect and stuff. And it like kind of went over my head with movies like The Witch, and The Lighthouse is very fantasy-esque, and then as well as this movie too. I think what holds this movie so well is definitely like, you know, the cinematography, and then, you know, I really like the really bizarre fantasy like elements within this movie. I wish it could have used a little bit more. This is the kind of movie I was hoping The Green Knight was gonna be, and I think I just got something completely different with The Green Knight. A24 tricked me again with that movie. It took a second watch for me to get into that movie, though. I did enjoy it a lot more after giving it a second try. But this one was much more of what I wanted, and maybe it's just because it came from Focus versus A24. It's a little bit more of a straightforward movie, even though this movie is definitely not for mainstream audiences. I'd still say a lot of people will be weirded out and bored by the most part, because there's nothing really wholeheartedly original other than the fact that, like, oh, it's a big budget Viking movie, I'd say.
And that honestly would be one of the things that I like feel like this film lacked of, is just originality. It's straight up just a vengeance movie. But even when it comes to like thinking about The Revenant, I feel like it did do like some things a little bit more original, especially like the perspectives in that movie. But I do feel like this film is kind of almost too of one note. I think if you're really to sit there and analyze pretty much everything within the frame, like I think you can find much of what makes Amleth's story different than the typical revenge movie. But I think just surface level, there is a very kind of typical revenge movie surface level that I wouldn't say I'm like bored or sick of, but I do feel like I don't feel like this film brought enough original like revenge aspects maybe to it, other than I mean, I guess there's some stuff here and there that I did enjoy very much about that revenge aspect, but I guess maybe then speaking back now, I'm going back, I do feel like I'm kind of over the vengeance entire vengeance movie. I feel like this film didn't give me a new perspective on such an old tale.
Gotcha. And I see that. Like, it was a movie when I initially watched it, I was like awestruck, and I'm kind of glad I saw it the second time, just because like at first I was like ready to put it in my top 3 movies of the year, and I rated it 4 stars the first time I saw it. But after watching it like a second time, I was like, you know what? Like, I haven't really thought about this movie since when I first watched it. Like, it was amazing that weekend I saw it. I was like highly recommending everyone to check it out. But like after watching it, like there's movies that I've seen just like it, like Gladiator is definitely the more mainstream version of this movie. Literally the same plot and a lot of similar like elements with like the like shots of afterlife and stuff, and some weird incest moments too in both movies as well too. But I guess like Gladiator is a movie that people would kind of expect mainstream audiences, and this is the more art house version of it. And I'd say this one, like I prefer Robert Eggers' cinematography over Ridley Scott's cinematography in that movie. But like this is definitely like Robert Eggers is like has made 3 solid movies for the most part. Some I'm way not into as much as other people are, but this is the movie that I'm finally like understanding the hype with him, I guess you could say. Like The Witch was fine, The Lighthouse was fine, but those weren't movies that were really settled well with me, I guess you could say. Whereas this movie, like it did though, but just I'm glad I watched it the second time on demand now and let it kind of soak in a little bit more and be like, this movie is really good. I do really like it, but it's not the best that I initially thought it was the first time I saw it.
To be fair, a little bit to the point I was just making previously was this is a studio movie.
Yeah.
Robert Eggers did not have final cut on this film. He's gone on to say that he'll never do a film again that he doesn't have final cut on, and that this was a very taxing experience for somebody. in general, just to struggle with studio notes. This wasn't the final product from which we're watching. It's not the director's cut. This isn't exactly what he wanted to be released, but he's full force backing. He's not saying that, but it's with that statement of he's never gonna do something where he doesn't have director's cut. He's kind of saying that, but it's just not it's not totally out in the public. Mm-hmm. But to be fair to him, I do think that as a studio movie, this is being very much sold as like a Robert Eggers picture, because it is, but it is the studio cut that's being released. He doesn't have director's cut. It's very much better than, I would say, a large majority of what's available out there at the moment. So I want to be fair in that sense, saying like, oh, this didn't bring that much original topics to a Vengeance movie. It did bring some things here and there which I feel like weren't entirely totally different, but they were different thoughts and stuff going into it that you wouldn't see from just a complete studio picture. So being that this is a studio picture being made in 2022, like, you got to give props where they're due. And I think that he made something that hasn't been made in a while, because it's a mid-budget. I mean, I think it was
90 million, I believe, which is still nowhere near as much as we see for superhero films, but that's a lot of money. Sorry.
Yeah, and the only things that are being made right now are $200 million movies, or lower than 15 or lower than $10 million. So you don't really see anything that's in the 50 to $90 million budget, or even 30. I think, if I remember correctly, I think Ambulance was like $30 million, right?
Oh, really?
Or $50 million.
Yeah. And I think also Malignant was $30 million, and James
so maybe
Wan
Emergency
just kept most of that money. I feel like,
maybe Ambulance wasn't worth that much. I think James Wan just pocketed the money from Malignant.
Yeah,
but that was just a bonus for that year. It's a bonus for the Saw franchise.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, just in general, like, this budget range isn't really produced ever. Like, it's just superhero movies that are $200 million, or some type of young adult novel. I think that genre is kind of said and done, but back that a couple years back, that was still a thing. But it's really just $200 million. This is a stock. This is Godzilla versus King Kong, anything that Legendary is making, or a superhero movie. Fast and the Furious, something that has multiple iterations, where it's something that is hardly even a bet at this point, and it's really just, we know this will bring back at least the budget.
Right.
Most likely double the budget, but at least the budget. So you got to give props where they're due. I think that having something like this come out that's entirely, an original story, whether it's something that we've kind of seen in multiple lights, it's, the most historically accurate Viking Vengeance movie. So that's original.
Yeah. Add that to the poster or the Blu-ray copy. Yeah. No, yeah, like I totally agree with that. I'm surprised like they allowed Robert Eggers to keep the movie as like different as it is, because who puts Bjork as a witch within a scene of a movie and stuff like that. That was cool. And I wanted more stuff like that, I guess you could say. But the fact that we got that in Final Cut is like already pretty amazing. Most studios would be like, what the hell is this? Like, get this out. And we've heard it countless times with David Ayer and Suicide Squad, and Josh Trank and Fantastic Four. They deleted all their important scenes that we needed so bad to make it a good movie. Like, I'm glad that they let Robert Eggers keep these scenes at least. Hope you caught my sarcasm there and stuff, because
those are superhero movies too, so you probably needed the scenes more than anything.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, like it seems like everyone like is kind of forgotten about it though too. It was getting all the hype from like film critics or film fans alike and stuff. But what is everyone still thinking about? Has everyone just forgotten about it, or has people been avoiding it because nobody went to go see it in theaters? Or hopefully it does well on demand. Let us know in the comments. Let us know what you thought about the movie. Check it out through our Amazon affiliate link in our description box below.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all our latest updates.
If you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, check all our social media links down below in our description box. Anyways, guys, that'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.